Hi everyone, so in this series of our cost accounting videos, we're going to be talking about activity-based costing and activity-based management. And in this first video, we're really going to talk about the difference between simple costing and activity-based costing. In the last chapter, or last series of videos, we talked about job costing, where we calculated a rate that we allocated our overhead based on. So this is a pictorial diagram of really simple costing or job order costing. So I want us to kind of think about what's in this diagram really quickly. So first, let's start with our direct costs down here on the bottom. Now remember, direct cost can be traced right back to a specific product. It doesn't have to be allocated. We talked about a wooden chair, for example. We know that the wood is a large cost of the product. Therefore, we know exactly the cost of the wood that was used in this chair versus this chair. Also, think about direct labor. These are the people that are putting the chair together. We know exactly how much time it took for them to put chairs together. So that can be traced right back to individual chairs. Now, other costs, like our overhead or our indirect cost, these can't cost beneficially be traced right back to a product. So they're either a small cost or it's not beneficial for us to trace them right back to a product. Things like the glue that we used on a chair. We may not know exactly how many drops this chair used versus this chair. So instead of taking time and effort to calculate how many drops we used on this chair versus this chair, we're going to use something that we allocate the cost based on. So for example, in this example here, our cost allocation base was direct manufacturing labor hours. So we're going to use direct manufacturing labor hours to allocate all of our indirect or overhead costs. So as you can see, this is a really good example of the difference. So the difference is right here in the center. So this is our cost object, or in our case, the chair. And the direct costs, again, are traceable right back to the product. However, the indirect costs have to be allocated right back to the product. So these are allocated, not traced. Okay, so we're basically going to have an average of that glue that we're going to allocate to each individual chair. So just to recap, remember simple costing, we allocate one rate. In this case, we had one allocation base, and that was direct labor hours. So we're going to end up with one rate that we're going to allocate all of our overhead costs to. So that differs from activity-based costing, because in activity-based costing, we're going to have multiple rates. So as you can see here, we have multiple activities that our product may go through before it becomes a finished good. But down at the bottom, we still have our direct cost, which are directly traceable right back to the product, or in this case, the cost object is what we're calling it here. So that's a job or a product. But if you look at the indirect cost, we have costs that go through multiple activities. So for example, if the chair goes through an automated process, labor hours is probably not an appropriate cost driver for that particular activity. Maybe machine hours is a better activity cost driver that more appropriately allocates those costs. So if it goes through multiple activities, you have to figure out what is driving the cost in that particular activity. And then we will calculate the rate for each one of those activities. So if your product goes through 2 activities, you will have 2 rates. If your product goes through 6 activities, as in this example, you're going to have 6 rates. So you're going to have to calculate a rate for every activity that your product goes through.